My name is Lise Colucci, and I am a narcissistic abuse recovery coach at queenbeing.com, where we help you to discover, understand, and overcome narcissistic abuse, toxic relationships. I do not like where this camera is. I'm moving it. Sorry, guys. This is crazy, but it's going. There we go. Okay. Starting over here. Hello, and welcome to live video coaching. Talking today about trauma bonds. How to help when you are trauma bonded and you have been discarded, left a relationship, are afraid of a relationship because you know those trauma bonds are going to hurt. Anything regarding trauma bonds. So anything you want to talk about regarding that, go ahead and hit the comments. If not, you have something else you want to talk about, go ahead and ask in the comments. Hello, Jenny, listening from work. Live, pretty close. The entertainment capital of the world, yes. Hello, Jess. Okay, so trauma bond. We all know what that's like, right? It can take an absolute leap of faith to decide to leave. It can take an act of the most amazing bravery that you can muster to get out of a toxic relationship. And the reason is these pesky trauma bonds that hold us bound to our abusers. Sometimes it can take a final blow, or sometimes literally, unfortunately, and sometimes, it can be something like, one last argument or one more thing they did that they said they'd never do again, or whatever it is. It can take one final thing. Hello, Tara and Butterfly Mama. Whatever it is that gets you to that point, or if you're discarded, or if you're considering leaving and you know just how hard it is for these to leave, then understanding the trauma bond and then having some ideas for what to do to help. Now, of course, I wrote nothing down for understanding, so we're going to wing it here. Okay. What I was focusing on was how to help in my mind was how to help when you know you're trauma bonded, to get out, and to things to do when you're feeling terrible. So what does that feel like? Anyone wants to help out here, go ahead and chime in. What does it feel like when you're trauma bonded, when you've been discarded, when you want to go back, you want everything the way it was, the good stuff. You have abuse amnesia and you can't remember the bad things. You possibly feel like you will never be loved again. You feel like it feels like absolute grief when you've been discarded or when you've had to leave. And it's beyond heartbroken. Butterfly Mama is saying heartbroken. I agree. It's beyond heartbroken, isn't it? It's like heartbroken times 1,000, right? It's just like the most miserable, amazingly painful experience. Hello, Crystal Jean. You're having the experience of grief and loss when you should be feeling elated and free, right? Your mind knows that this was toxic. This was not good for me. This was unhealthy. Your heart is completely bound to this person. The cognitive dissonance is extreme. It's knowing that this isn't good for you and feeling like it's death without it, right? So the constant spinning vortex of, but I can save him if only I do blank, or her if only I do blank better or differently. Yeah. Thanks, Jenny. That's a good one. Tara is saying it's like a drug addict. Sorry, I'm going to repeat that. It's like a drug addict in withdrawal. It really is. And Crystal Jean is saying it's the strongest addiction ever. And you know how twisted it is all the while. Yeah. So we know what that's, okay. So we have all experienced that, at least in this little forum here. So what's going on with your brain and body is, okay. So a while ago, I talked about what happens when we have attraction, and our brain lights up in like the primal part of the brain that controls breathing and heartbeat. It doesn't respond to logic and reason. It's the part of your brain that lights up when you have an attraction to someone. So that's like across the board. Okay. That lights up. That's what gives you the spark to go after that person or to single them out from the crowd. Okay. And then what happens is your emotions fire off in another part of your brain, which is where your emotions are, and it's in the limbic system. And then in your neural cortex, your logic comes in and you have all the reasons why you like this person. So that's like in every relationship. Okay. But when you can just imagine what happens with that when you have abuse, right? This is going on in everybody who's got a partner. But when you have abuse, I'm sure it's firing. I don't know the actual what's firing, but you can imagine like the crazy neural reactions that's happening in your brain. So then when you have a trauma bond, when you break up, all those things are still firing. So the problem is the thing that's attracting you to the person is still going off in the part of your brain that has no logic. So what do you do? What do you do? And this goes on for everybody when there's a breakup. Now, when there's trauma bonding, there's added things happening. You've got dopamine release from the breadcrumbing that they did. So when you have the love bomb and devalue, the reason it sets up this trauma bond, the addiction part is it's just like a gambling addiction almost, where you have loss and you have loss and you have loss. And imagine pulling a slot machine. You have loss and you have loss and you have loss, and you have this feeling of needing to win, needing something. I need something. It creates need. So it's kind of like sparsity, right? You have, if you have scarceness or sparsity, it creates need. Well, the narcissist will set up this with the devaluing and the silent treatments and all that horrible stuff. And then when they give you a love bombing or an ounce of breadcrumbing, even, it surges your body with dopamine. So when that happens, then you get where that dopamine feels so good that you need more of it. So it satisfies you until the dopamine wears off. And then they start the cycle again. Well, that cycle is addictive. So when they're gone, it's like the ultimate silent treatment. Okay. You're left with this dopamine need. Okay. So you've got that going on. You've got your brain firing like anyone else who has a breakup, where it's still in this part of your brain that has no logic going, I'm so attracted to them. I need them so much. Right. So you can see where this is not easy stuff. So you've got to override it with a whole lot of logic, a whole lot of self-care, and implement a whole lot of, we don't have to, I say gotta, but it's useful to, let's put it that way. It's useful to, and it helps you move through it a little smoother. Let me read some of this because I am just going on and not reading what's happening here. Okay. My sister's in the trauma bond addiction cycle, left me a shrieking voicemail 2 days ago insisting she won't leave her abuser. It's so hard to watch. Okay. I hope I explained that well. That was like off the top of my head explanation of what happens. And I hope that explanation made sense. I should have wrote that down. I can do a little more in depth with what the trauma bond actually is in another video, but I really want to have time to get to how to help. So if you know, regardless of what's happening, you feel terrible. You feel like you can't get out of bed. You might feel like you are like the world, it's like nothing matters. You might feel like the only thing that matters is getting them back. You might be so obsessed with getting them back, even though you don't want them back and you shouldn't have them back. You might know you don't want to contact them at all, ever. You don't even want them, but the urge to contact them comes over you like crazy, and you feel like you can't stop it. So what can you do? Number one is, I can read this is where I read my writing and I'm like, so I said something here. It made sense at the time. Acceptance that this is what it is, and it is toxic. You have to accept that the person that was abusive to you was actually abusive to you. You have to accept, even if you have doubts, that a person can have no empathy. You have to accept that the patterns they set up in the relationship are their patterns. They were their choices. And that has nothing to do with you or what you could have done differently, but that this is the patterns that they repeat in their own relationships in their life. And that's them. They are who they are. And doubt's going to creep in, but you have to hold on to the fact that that isn't a relationship you want in your life, and you can't change them. Okay. And the relationship was toxic. You just have to, there's a point where acceptance is kind of critical. If you can't accept it, things to do are some things like writing a list of the abuse down. That's always recommended, so that you have something tangible. So that you have something tangible to go back and look at that is a reminder. And support groups help with that too, because then you have validation from other people. So other people, you can explain what you went through, and they can say, oh yeah, that happened to me. And when you read other people's stories, it can be very validating. So number 2, let's see, I'm going to read here a second. Okay. If I miss a question, anyone, please just repeat it and kind of let me know. I'm going to have a huge list here for ideas to help. So I'm just going to talk and then I'll open it up for questions at the end. So if you have one, just hold it for a second and go ahead and keep chatting. And if there is something and I miss it, please repeat it. So number 2, self-care. Self-care. I can't say it enough. It's number 2 for a reason. It actually should be number 1. Acceptance I just put in there because it's kind of critical, and it's a really hard one to accept. But self-care. So what does self-care look like? It looks like different things at different points in your life. It's taking care of yourself in exactly where you are. So if you can't get out of bed, take a nap. If you can't get out of bed and you can't do anything and it's only been like 2 or 3 days or something and you're just feeling grief, let yourself cry, let yourself lay there, watch Netflix in bed, whatever you need to do. That's self-care at that point. At a certain point, you got to get up, right? So what do? You take a shower. Now, don't just hop in the shower and, use the shower as a time to take care of yourself. Anything you do for yourself is self-care. So half the time we miss out on opportunities to show ourselves care because we're not paying any attention to the thing we're doing for ourselves, right? We're taking ourselves for granted. And the whole point is we've been taken for granted too long. And we have to learn to have some self-worth. And the only way to find that is through oneself. It's all about how you take care of yourself, okay? So make sure you eat, talk to people, take walks, cuddle a pet or a pillow, anything that makes you feel comforted and nurtured when you are going through trauma bonding is useful. If you're at a little further along and the trauma bonding is still there and you're maybe like at the point where you want to contact them all the time, but the rest of it's okay in your day, you're functioning, but you just really want to contact them. Self-care might be finding a class to take or something to take the focus off of the abuser and put it onto yourself. Okay, I could go on and on and on about self-care for hours. And I have a coaching group just for self-care, and it's amazing to watch people go through that and start to change their lives. So it's something I could talk about forever, but I'm going to stop and we're going to move on. So another thing that needs to happen is you have to realize you're grieving. Okay. This is a traumatic situation and it's grief and it's a loss. So you got to feel what you need to feel. We can't be afraid of our feelings and try and hide from them. We have to allow the grief that is whatever you're feeling, you have to allow it. And at the same time, back to that self-care and nurture yourself through it. And that can mean calling a friend. It can mean journaling. It can mean anything that gets you to where you're allowed to express what you feel and feel what you feel without judging yourself or having anyone else judge you. So don't go to people who are going to tell you, just get over it, things like that. That's not validating. It's not useful in the situation. If someone does that, just say thank you and walk away, but there are people who will validate you out there in support groups, coaching, whatever you need. So make sure that you are taking care of yourself and nurturing yourself. You know yourself better than anyone, and you know the types of things. And if you don't, then this is a great place to discover and a great way to use this pain. Okay, if you don't know yourself well enough to know what nurtures you, time to find out. Because this can be something where you can turn this horrible situation into something positive for yourself, where you discover things about yourself that help you later in life. So what nurtures you? What makes you feel cared for? And start doing them while you're feeling these feelings that are awful and you don't want to feel. Number 4 is journaling and getting it out. And not only journaling, as in writing your feelings down, but keep a gratitude journal. That's really useful to help. Everything's so negative and so dark, and you just can't stay there. As people, especially empathic people, we can't live in that gloom. It's too much. It's too heavy. So gratitude journals help you to remember that there's good things out there and that you can focus on those. Let me read here a second. Mine, hello. My narc figured out all my self-care and sabotaged it. Horrible. Okay. So if you're in a situation where you're still with a person who is sabotaging your efforts of self-care, secret self-care, okay? No one can sabotage the way you talk to yourself. Well, they can if you're not aware. They totally can. But if you are aware and you say you're doing something that you do alone, like take a shower, maybe cook your meal, whatever you do that you do by yourself, where you're in your own thoughts, that's a time to really make sure that those thoughts are good. The time and the space that you have to yourself is so important when you're with a toxic person. Those moments when you're by yourself and you're doing something, if you keep repeating negativity and patterning that has been toxic to you, you're abusing yourself at the same time as you're being abused all the time. And it's not on purpose. It's not your fault. But once you're aware of it, once you catch yourself, then you can turn it around to something positive, and that's where your self-care comes in. Does that make sense? And no one can take that once you learn how to do it. Okay, it's the same as when you're gray rocking. You can use that time for some self-care. That you need it more than anything when you're in the middle of it. Okay, it's just really hard to give it to yourself. But you can, when you're gray rocking, you can say to yourself silently in your head, "Oh, I don't need to deal with this. This is their problem. I know the truth. I know what's right for me." And just keep holding that in your head. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not the best self-care, but I mean, it is actually, but it's not the feel good stuff, right? But it's something to keep you from slipping all the way down. Okay. Never be harsh on yourself, baby steps. Exactly. Let's see. Jenny, that's a good point. Jenny Moore says, and self-care and self-love is still so mischaracterized as selfishness or egomania in some circles. Such a shame. It is, and it isn't even. When I think of self-care, see, I could just make this whole thing self-care. When I think of self-care, I don't think of it as something, it's the care you'd give to anybody else, right? It's the care you put into any activity in your life. It's integrity. It's just showing yourself the same integrity that you show everything else in your life. So you can see that it really has nothing to do with selfishness or self-centeredness or egotistical or egomania. It just has to do, like you're saying, it is a shame people see it as. And it also has nothing to do with whether you deserve it or not. A lot of people that I talk to when they come to the self-care group, one of their main things they say is, I don't deserve the self-care. I know I need it and I want to deserve it. I want to feel like I deserve it, but I don't feel like I deserve it. I can't take time for myself. I can't do this for myself. And the point is that it's not a deserve or not deserve situation. It's about having the integrity that you give to other things, giving it back to yourself. And when you see it that way, it's like, oh, okay. And as you start doing it, you start to feel that you deserve it. So yeah, we want to eventually get where we feel we deserve it. But aside from that, it's more about your own giving yourself the same attention. So, okay, enough of that. Okay. Support system. Number 5, have a support system. So when you're super trauma bonded and you know it is really useful to have a support system. Having people who have been through it, having people who are going through it currently, having people who have come out the other side and can talk to you about what it was like and how it will get better. Really, really important. People that understand what it's about, why it's happening, the little details, the fine nuances. You know what I'm talking about. So, groups like SPAN, therapist, coaching, I have a coaching trauma bond group just for that purpose. It's all really validating. I wouldn't say friends and family in this case, unless they've been through it. Going to people who have not been through this, the likelihood of them understanding are it's pretty low. Sometimes they will, and that's great, but it's the problem is if you don't feel understood, we're so vulnerable when we're in this position. We need so much validation. We need to experience being heard and being understood, even when we're saying things that really do sound a little crazy to some people. Like, why would you want to go back to them? People will like, what's, they don't get it. Okay. So finding support group of people that actually get it is really useful, and validation is helpful. Okay. There's something I can't read. Oh, so no, it gets better. You're just going to have to take my word on this one. It does get better. Okay. Or I wouldn't be giggling at you here a little bit. Seriously, it gets better. It does. Know that it gets better, and that you actually can grow from this experience. You can, all of these things I'm saying here, if you try even one or two, you will find that you have more self-awareness, have more self-respect. These are not just band-aids. These are actually kind of life hacks, really. These are ways to go, in my opinion, ways to go about making change in your life for your future. Number one, so that you can lead a fulfilling life. And number two, so that you can build resistance against anyone coming in and trying to take these things away from you again. So in other words, kind of narc-proof narcissists, they still may try, but the whole nother topic, we did that the other day. So we'll keep going. Okay. This one is important. Bring the focus to yourself as much as possible. Okay. Build your own life. Build your own life on the inside too. Right? And what I mean by that is the focus, the drive, and the desire to focus on, but they this, what about them? How come the narcissist does this? How come they do that? Super important to understand what you went through and who they are and what it's all about and what gaslighting is, and have your own examples. It's really important to get all of the info, right? The discovering and understanding is really, really important, but you also have to discover and understand about yourself. And the more you take your focus off of them and start placing it on yourself, the less these trauma bonds have a hold. And people always want to go back. I can't tell. I mean, it's partially why I created the groups, the coaching groups for it, because sometimes it can help to talk to someone and have them say, okay, now what about you? You know what I'm saying? Like you're talking about maybe, and then they did this, and then you want to tell the whole story about the horrible anniversary. And then, and it's important. We need to hear these things. But if we're talking about trying to break these trauma bonds and focus on a solution to what's going on, then sometimes it can help to just have someone say, now, what about you? What can you do now? What's happening in your life? Like, help direct you to move you forward. And short of a coaching group, do it for yourself. Stop perseverating on the narcissist. At a certain point, you just have to stop. And that might not be right away. You may have a lot of understanding that you need to go through, but at a certain point, you've got to shift your focus off of the toxic person and onto the one who's trying to heal, which is you. Okay. And some ideas that are simple that you can do for that are things like just start like vacation dreaming. Look at things you might want to do for a vacation. How about a career change? Do you need a career? How about looking at things you're good at? What do you enjoy in life? Exercise. Everyone could use a little more of that. Well, not everyone, but most of us, right? Get some exercise. Focus on making your body healthy. Okay. Meditate. I'll get to that one later, but meditate. Really. There's so many ideas for this, but really bringing the focus off of them, you get the point, get it off of them and onto you and what you want, positive things for yourself. Okay. Number 8, block them everywhere. Block them, get rid of the pictures, get rid of the memories, get rid of the stuff. It's important to not have the constant reminders. It is an addiction. You wouldn't have, alcoholic wouldn't sit with a bottle of alcohol on their desk all day, or, pictures of it on their phone while going to work, whatever, and expect to not crave that very thing. So get rid of the reminders, block them. No contact is for you. It's not for them. Okay. No contact is to keep you safe and break these trauma bonds. Okay. So that's part, understanding why the urge to contact them is there as part of that too. And another thing that you can do along these lines, besides just the block and get rid of pictures, is rearrange your house, especially if they lived with you or if they were over a lot. Rearrange your furniture. You can get new stuff, paint a wall, do something to make the space of your home your own. Changing things up on the outside can kind of help. We do have to change the inside, but the outside can kind of help. So I know I said a few minutes ago about get your mind off of them. You also have to educate yourself on narcissism. That helps a lot. Sometimes people do the opposite of obsessing and they don't want to look at it. What happens often is then they often think it wasn't so bad. It's a dissociative technique, right? And it creates this abuse amnesia, and it wasn't so bad. I can't actually remember what happened. I just really miss them. Right. So in that case, educating yourself on narcissism can be super important. You can see why. And when that happens, triggers will start to happen. Allow those triggers. Those triggers are they are waking up your feelings, and they're showing you truths. Okay. It's uncomfortable, but if you're a person that checks out and doesn't want to look at it and is feeling like you are like, I miss them, everything's okay, it'll be okay, that's when you got to educate yourself more and more on the things that they're doing. Realize that a person without empathy won't change, and that their method of communication and their method of relationship is toxic. It's not going to be any different. So you have to understand that, educate yourself on it, and as you feel, let yourself feel and go back to taking care of yourself and nurturing while you are having these new and horrible feelings. So remember that overwhelm, number 11, remember overwhelm is normal. It's normal to feel like you can't remember anything. It's normal to feel like you are like every stress is just too much stress. Everything's overwhelming. It's normal. It will get better. It's just kind of part of it. So it helps to talk, to take breaks from thinking about it by spacing out and watching Netflix, whatever. And having gratitude lists, that's helpful. There's meditation. It's helpful to help with the overwhelm. Let me see what's going on over here. I'm sorry. I'm totally ignoring you guys. I don't mean to be. I just had a huge list and now I can't get my cursor there. Yay. Okay. Okay, there's lots of good feedback here. Okay. All right. So I would encourage anyone listening to this to go, I'll leave the chat up to read the chat. There's some really great little tidbits of feedback that people are leaving. If I go over there, I'll get distracted and I won't finish my list. So I'm going to finish and then we'll go to the chat. All right. So 2 more. Live in the real time. Ooh, that's hard when we want to go into our past and we're projecting into our future, and we're trying to take the past and throw it into the future, and take the future and the hopes for the future and drag it back to the past. And that's all we're doing. We're bouncing between the future and the past. You know what I'm talking about? We're worried about what will be, what will never be again, what we're worried about the future. And what we're doing is attaching to the past, which is the toxic relationship that we had, not that we have now. Okay. Or if you're still in it, you do have it, but that's even closer. That's even harder because your future is your past, right? And we're not in the moment. The moment right now is where to live, especially if you've been discarded or if you have left. and you're feeling like you're in that push and pull between the past and the future, get into the real time, into the moment. So, mindfulness is the number one thing I can think of there. And there's mindfulness practice, mindfulness like videos and whatnot all over YouTube. There's, I'd say 10 minutes twice a day minimum, but just short ones, 5 to 10 minutes, not long, just short, to get yourself start training yourself to calm down and come into the present moment and stay in the moment for 5 minutes. Okay. That is helpful. The reason it's helpful is this is where we actually live. we miss it. We miss our life when we don't live in this moment. The past is nothing but something that's already happened, and the future's not here yet. So this is right now is where we're living. So it kind of, to me, it makes the hurt a little less, because right now nothing bad is happening. Does that make sense? Unless, of course, right now something bad is happening. But right now, like, it's pretty calm in the actual moment. And especially if you're sitting in meditation and you're done with meditation, it's been 5 minutes. If you pay attention and you're like, oh, my breathing's calmed, my thoughts are a little more calm. But right now it's pretty good. Okay. And it's having that space from all of the back and forth between the past and the future, just having moments of being in the present that actually helps your nervous system calm down, and it helps you be more aware of what's real. And the trauma bonds they're lies. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So another way to be in real time is look for things around you that are a certain color, or count certain objects, or just getting yourself, more present to what's actually going on in the space around you. You can notice things. You can take a walk and notice what's going on. Just pay attention. Name things. So, oh, a rose bush, it's blooming now. How interesting. Okay, those are pink. Those are pink roses, whatever. And then keep moving, and naming what's actually going on in front of you helps. And sometimes you just have to remind yourself, okay, you're way back in your past right now. Let's get to the moment. What's going on around me? You have to sometimes talk yourself to it. And the last one, I'm trying to think how to talk about this one. So, especially when you have been out of the relationship for a little bit, and you've had some time to process what's happened, and the grief is potentially lessened just a little bit, but you still feel like if they hoovered, you'd go back, right? Or you still feel the urge to contact them constantly. But and it's time to start working on self-awareness. At a certain point, we get past the initial grief, and it's time to start working on the self-awareness part. And that is, look for the hook. Okay, look for what is hooking you back. What is it in you that you need to heal? Does that make sense? It can be things like, what do you fear? What do you fear? What are you fearing? I'm afraid to be alone. Why are you afraid to be alone? Well, because I'll always be alone. That's not a real answer. Why are you afraid of that? Like really start scrutinizing yourself a little bit, not in a mean way, but in a way that helps you ask yourself the questions you need to ask to understand what the real hook is. And when you get to that, sometimes it can open up a lot of stuff. So this might be something with a therapist or a coach that is useful, to just start looking for what is it in you that is keeping you wanting to go back, right? Does that make sense? It's usually a belief we have. There's a hint. Yeah. A belief we have about ourselves. I don't deserve anything better. I'm not enough. I'm not, this is all there ever is. A belief about love. If you had narcissistic parents and you've only had abusers, of course, that's what love looks like. Why would you not go back to the easiest one? Why would you not go back to the one who's asking for you back rather? That's, if you realize your hook is, that's how I experience love. Oh my gosh, I know better in my head, but that's my experience. That's what I know to be true. So look for your hook and start working on it. And that's where that's a whole nother topic, but that's the start. Okay. So I'm done. a lot of words. Okay, here we go. Going to you guys. I can do being in the present, but near future requires me to act to avoid major loss, but I cannot function with anxiety and I have no one to help, to vent to except Spanley. But even then, I know I mean, again, none of this is going to fix things overnight. These are ideas. You take what you can do and you start doing it. That's all I got for that. I don't, okay. Relationships are not Band-Aids for wounds. Okay. Jenny has a good one here. This is about our hooks. Relationships are not Band-Aids for wounds of our souls, nor are they security blankets against our fears. That's right. They're not. It's not really relating, is it, when we're doing that? That's just clinging. So again, what's your hook? All right. Anybody have a question? I talked a long time. I'm going to go back and skim this. Did anyone have a question or anything that they would like me to talk about? I am happy to answer now. What is my hook? Yeah, it's a tough one. And that's not one you necessarily need to do immediately, right? You got to go through the grief and it's okay. It's okay to wait a bit for that. Butterfly Mama says, I hope I got rid of any hooks. Me too. Yeah. Okay. Anybody have anything they want to talk about? Otherwise, we're going to end here really shortly and get on with our afternoons, right? I appreciate you all being here. That was a really active chat and I love it. So again, I'd encourage anyone who is watching this on replay to read along with the chat because I think they had some great things they were adding in as I was talking. So, and anyone I didn't say hello to, hello. I don't know who's in here right now. That was more exciting than I'm used to. Let's see. Okay. All right. We all good? Anybody have anything they want to talk about before I end? I think I must have hit I did. I hit 40 minutes. I say this every time. I hit 40 minutes and it's like a wall of fog. I get brain fog. What was I just saying? And then it comes back. It's like second wind, but I'm at that point. So you guys, anything, any questions? No. Okay. I hope that was helpful on trauma bonds. That's what I have for you right now. There's a million other ideas I'm sure we could add to it. Actually, if anyone has any other ideas for how to help people with trauma bonds that maybe you posted above and I missed, or maybe I didn't cover, go ahead and just add them and I will read them in right now to the end. And when I make this into a shorter video and I put it all together, I'll add it. So you feel brain fog for life. Yikes. Yeah, I know. It's no fun. All right. Anything that, let me go back and read while you guys are typing in case I missed anything. Because I'd like to get as much in there as possible for people. So you know how it is. You know how it is when you have been discarded, and you know how it is at the end. People need some help. So nothing. Okay. Gonna end up missing it. All right, you guys, I'm gonna take off and I will see you later. Thank you all for joining me this afternoon. That was a good time. I like this afternoon time. It's quiet. It's good. Okay. So thank you again for joining me. As always, I wish you the best on your healing journey and as you take back your life and thrive. So thank you very much. I will see you next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like if you enjoyed this or if this was useful to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.